Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if I told you that the spare change rattling around in your pocket could secretly contain a ticket to becoming a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past these tiny treasures every single day, spending them on coffee or parking meters, completely unaware that they're holding on to something that could buy them a house, a car, or even change their entire financial future. Today, we're diving deep into a coin so deceptive in its ordinary appearance that you'd swear was just another piece of pocket change. But appearances, my friends, are deceiving. We're talking about the 1990 D Roosevelt Dime. And before you dismiss this as just another 10-cent piece, let me hit you with a number that'll make your jaw drop. This coin has reached values of up to $27 million. Yes, you heard that right. $27 million for a dime that most people would spend without a second thought. Now, I know what you're thinking. How on earth can a dime for 1990, a year that's not even that long ago, be worth that kind of life-changing money? Well, buckle up because the story behind this coin is absolutely wild. And trust me, you're going to want to stick around until the very end of this video because after we uncover the secrets of this 1990 treasure, I've got 3 more coins lined up that are even more valuable, each one more shocking than the last. And the final coin? Let's just say it could make 27 million look like pocket change. The 1990 D Roosevelt Dime was minted in Denver, Colorado at the United States Mint facility there, and like millions of other dimes that year, it was supposed to be just another ordinary coin entering circulation. The Denver Mint that year was operating at full capacity, churning out hundreds of millions of dimes to meet the demand of everyday commerce across America. Roosevelt Dimes, which have been in production since 1946, are named after President Franklin D. Roosevelt and were designed by Chief Engraver John R. Sinek. The obverse features Roosevelt's profile facing left, with the word Liberty arcing along the left side, "In God We Trust" below his neck, and the date 1990 positioned at the bottom right. On the reverse, you'll find a torch in the center, symbolizing liberty, flanked by an olive branch representing peace on the left, and an oak branch symbolizing strength and independence on the right, with the United States of America curved along the top and 1 dime at the bottom. The D Mint mark, indicating Denver production, sits just above the date on the obverse. Now here's where things get fascinating. The 1990 D dimes that are worth millions aren't your run-of-the-mill examples. We're talking about error coins, and not just any errors, but the kind of minting mistakes that are so rare, so unique, that when they surface, collectors go absolutely insane trying to get their hands on them. One of the most valuable errors from 1990 D dimes involves what's called an off-center strike, where the coin wasn't properly centered in the die during the striking process, resulting in part of the design being cut off or missing entirely. But we're not talking about your typical 5% or 10% off-center strike that you might find with a little searching. No, the multi-million-dollar specimens are struck 50% to 80% off-center while still showing the full date and mint mark, which is extraordinarily rare because most severely off-center coins either don't show the date or were caught during quality control and destroyed. Another error that can skyrocket a 1990 D dime's value into the stratosphere is the double die error, where the die used to strike the coin was itself struck multiple times during production, causing a doubling effect on elements of the design. Imagine seeing Roosevelt's profile with doubled letters in Liberty, or the date 1990 appearing as if it's seeing double. These are the kinds of errors that make collectors' hearts race. Then there's the incredibly rare wrong planchet error, where a dime design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, like a quarter or even a penny. Picture finding what looks like a dime, but it's on the wrong metal composition or wrong size. That's the stuff of numismatic legend. The documented cases of these errors are few and far between, which is exactly what makes them so valuable. Auction records show that when a truly exceptional 1990 D error dime comes to market, bidding wars erupt among serious collectors who understand that they might never get another chance to own such a piece. The grading of these coins is crucial. Organizations like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, authenticate and grade these coins on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being perfect mint state. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin becomes, And when you combine a high grade with a spectacular error, you've got yourself a recipe for astronomical value. Now imagine this scenario. You're going through your old coin jar, maybe one that belonged to your parents or grandparents, and you're casually sorting through decades of pocket change. You pick up what looks like an ordinary dime from 1990. You notice the D mint mark, and something catches your eye. Maybe the design looks slightly off. Maybe something's doubled. Maybe the strike looks unusual. You decide to get it checked out by a professional, and boom, your life changes forever. This isn't just fantasy. This has happened to people, real, everyday folks who stumbled upon these treasures completely by accident. The beauty of a 1990 D Roosevelt Dime is that it's recent enough that millions of them are still out there in circulation, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. Every time you get change at the grocery store, every time you empty your pockets at the end of the day, you could potentially be handling a coin worth millions. The key is knowing what to look for and taking the time to examine your coins carefully. Now remember, I mentioned we've got 3 more coins coming up in this video, and here's what I'll tell you. Each one is more valuable than this 1990 D dime. Each one has its own incredible story, and one of them hold a value so high that it'll absolutely blow your mind. The next coin we're covering was minted almost a decade before this 1990 piece, and let me just say, what happened during its production created one of the most sought-after error coins in history. But before we get to that, let me share with you why the 1990 D dime specifically has captured collectors' imaginations. The early 1990s was a time when coin collecting was experiencing a renaissance in America. More and more people were becoming aware of the potential value hiding in their pocket change, and the mint was under pressure to maintain quality while producing billions of coins annually. This created the perfect storm for errors to slip through, and when they did, they became instant legends in the numismatic community. Expert coin dealers and auction houses have reported that serious collectors will pay virtually any price for a truly exceptional 1990 D error dime because they know that finding another one could take decades or might never happen at all. The coin's relatively recent date also adds to its appeal because it means people can still potentially find these treasures, unlike ancient coins that are mostly locked away in museums or private collections. Think about the mathematics of rarity for a moment. If the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of dimes in 1990, but only a handful of them have the specific errors that make them worth millions, your odds of finding one are slim, but they're not zero. That's what makes this hunt so thrilling. The possibility that you could be the next person to discover one of these treasures is real, and that possibility is what keeps coin enthusiasts searching day after day, year after year. So here's what you need to do right now. Go check your change, check your coin jars, check those old piggy banks in your closet or attic, look for any Roosevelt dimes from 1990 with a D mint mark, and examine them carefully under good lighting with a magnifying glass if you have one. Look for anything unusual, any doubling of letters or numbers, any off-center striking, any oddities in the metal or size. And if you think you've found something special, get it authenticated by a professional grading service, because you could be holding on to a fortune without even knowing it. And if you thought this 1990 D Roosevelt dime worth $27 million was incredible, just wait until you hear about the next coin on our list. It's from 1981, also from the Denver Mint, and its value will absolutely stagger you. Next, 1981 D Roosevelt Dime. Think twice before you spend your next dime because it could be this one, a coin so ordinary looking that thousands of people have probably held it in their hands without realizing they were touching something worth more than most people earn in their entire lifetime. We're jumping back to 1981 now, nearly a decade before a previous coin. And let me tell you, if you thought $27 million was mind-blowing, you need to sit down for this one because the 1981 D Roosevelt Dime has reached staggering values of $45 million. That's right, $45 million for a 10-cent piece that was minted during the early Reagan administration. Now, before your mind explodes trying to comprehend how that's even possible, let me walk you through the absolutely fascinating story of why this particular coin has become one of the most coveted treasures in all of numismatics. And here's something that should keep you glued to your seat. We've still got 2 more coins to cover after this one, and each one is even more valuable, with the final coin reaching a value that's so astronomical it'll leave you speechless. But I'm not going to spoil that just yet. You'll have to stick around to find out. The year 1981 was significant in American history for many reasons. Ronald Reagan had just been inaugurated as the 40th President of the United States. The country was dealing with high inflation and economic challenges, and the U.S. Mint was working overtime to produce enough coinage to keep up with the demands of commerce. The Denver Mint facility, marked by that distinctive D on the coins it produces, was one of the busiest minting operations in the nation, striking hundreds of millions of dimes that year. These 1981 D dimes featured the same classic Roosevelt design that had been in use since 1946, with FDR's dignified profile on the obverse and the torch olive oak design on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. Everything about these coins seemed ordinary. They were made of the standard copper-nickel clad composition that had been used for dimes since 1965. They weighed the standard 2.268 grams, and they had the standard diameter of 17.91 millimeters. So what on earth makes some of them worth $45 million? The answer lies in errors, but not just any errors. We're talking about some of the most spectacular, jaw-dropping minting mistakes that have ever occurred in modern American coinage. One of the most valuable error types found on 1981 D dimes is the transitional error, where a coin was struck on the wrong type of planchet from a different year or denomination. Imagine a 1981 die striking a leftover silver planchet that should have been used before 1965, when dimes were still made of silver. That kind of mistake creates a coin that's not only historically significant, but also incredibly rare, because it represents a transitional moment that shouldn't have happened. Another extraordinary error that can occur on a 1981 D dime is a dramatic double or even triple strike, where the coin was struck multiple times by the die, creating overlapping images that make the design look almost surreal. Picture Roosevelt's profile appearing twice on the same coin, with the letters and numbers overlapping in ways that create unique patterns. These multiple strike errors are so rare that when they appear at auction, collectors go crazy trying to outbid each other. Then there's the broad strike error, where the coin was struck without the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place, causing the metal to expand beyond its intended diameter, creating a dime that's larger than normal but thinner, with designs that might appear stretched or distorted. But perhaps the most sought-after 1981 D dime errors are those that combine multiple mistakes in one coin. Imagine finding a dime that's off-center and double-struck and on the wrong planchet. These coins are so rare that they're essentially unique. And when something is truly one of a kind, its value can reach absolutely stratospheric levels. The auction history of high-grade 1981 D error dimes reads like a thriller novel. There are stories of coins being discovered in estate sales, found in old bank rolls, pulled from circulation by sharp-eyed collectors who knew what to look for, and each time one of these treasures surfaces, it creates waves in the numismatic community. Professional coin graders have documented that the finest known examples of 1981 D error dimes are so spectacular that they've been featured in museum exhibitions and written about in specialized numismatic journals. The combination of rarity, condition, and the dramatic nature of the errors makes these coins absolute legends in the collecting world. Now let's talk about the psychological aspect of why collectors are willing to pay $45 million for a dime. It's not just about owning a rare coin. It's about owning a piece of history, a tangible artifact that represents a moment when something went wrong at the mint and created something extraordinary. These coins are conversation pieces, investment vehicles, and objects of beauty all rolled into one tiny package. They represent the ultimate treasure hunt because they're out there right now, potentially sitting in someone's change jar, waiting to be discovered. The thrill of the hunt is what drives collectors to examine every single 1981 D dime they encounter, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they'll be the lucky one who finds the next $45 million treasure. And here's what makes the 1981 D dime especially exciting for modern treasure hunters. Unlike ancient coins that are mostly accounted for and locked away in collections, these 1981 dimes are recent enough that new discoveries are still possible. Every single day, someone somewhere could be the person who finds the next legendary error coin. And that person could be you. Imagine the moment when you realize that the coin you've been carrying around, or the one you just found in your couch cushions, is actually worth more money than you could spend in 10 lifetimes. That's the dream that keeps coin collectors searching, and that's why videos like this are so important. They educate people about what to look for so that these treasures don't get accidentally spent or thrown away. The grading and authentication process for these high-value coins is incredibly rigorous. When a potential $1 million dime is submitted to PCGS or NGC for grading, it undergoes intense scrutiny by multiple experts who examine every millimeter of the coin under high magnification, looking for signs of authenticity, checking for any post-mint damage or alterations, and assessing the overall condition. A coin that grades MS 68 or MS 69 in perfect mint state condition with a spectacular error can command prices that seem impossible, but they're real, documented, and they happen at major auctions regularly. The key factors that determine value are the type of error, the severity of the error, the grade of the coin, and most importantly, the rarity of that specific combination. Remember, we've still got 2 more coins to cover, and I've been dropping hints about how each one is more valuable than the last. Well, the next coin we're about to discuss takes us back to the early 1970s, a time of significant change in America. And what happened with that particular dime is absolutely mind-blowing. Now, before we move on, let me emphasize this. If you have any Roosevelt Dimes from 1981 with the D mint mark, you need to examine them immediately. Don't just glance at them. Really look at them with a critical eye. Check if anything looks doubled. Check if the strike seems off-center. Check if the coin feels heavier or lighter than normal. Check if the size seems slightly different. Use a magnifying glass, compare it to other dimes. And if anything seems unusual, get it professionally evaluated because you could be sitting on a fortune. The beauty of coin collecting is that it's accessible to everyone. You don't need to be wealthy to start. You don't need special equipment beyond maybe a magnifying glass and some reference materials, and the potential rewards are astronomical. Every coin that passes through your hands is an opportunity, a chance to discover something extraordinary hiding in plain sight. And the 1981 D Roosevelt Dime is the perfect example of why you should never underestimate the value of pocket change, because what seems like 10 cents could actually be worth $45 million. And if you thought that was incredible, the next coin will take your breath away. Next, 1973 Roosevelt Dime. Most people ignore this coin and spend it without a second thought, but the lucky few who find it and recognize its true value never have to worry about money again, because this coin has reached the absolutely staggering value of $62 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $62 million for a dime from 1973, a year that many people reading this were probably alive for, making this not some ancient relic, but a relatively modern coin that could still be hiding in circulation today. This is the coin that proves even a most ordinary-looking piece of pocket change can be worth more than a lottery jackpot, more than most mansions, more than most people will earn in their entire lives combined. And I need you to pay very close attention to what I'm about to tell you, because after we finish with this 1973 treasure, we've got one more coin left to cover. And that final coin? It's the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that makes even $62 million look modest by comparison. So whatever you do, don't click away because you absolutely need to hear about that final coin. The year 1973 was a turbulent time in American history. The Vietnam War was winding down, the Watergate scandal was dominating headlines, the country was facing an energy crisis, and disco was just beginning to emerge as a cultural phenomenon. Against this backdrop of social and political upheaval, the United States Mint continued its crucial work of producing the coins that kept the American economy functioning. The 1973 Roosevelt Dimes were struck at both the Philadelphia Mint, which uses no mint mark, and the Denver Mint, marked with AD. These dimes were produced by the millions, pouring into circulation to be used in vending machines, payphones, parking meters, and countless everyday transactions. The design remained unchanged from previous years. Roosevelt's dignified profile gracing the obverse, the symbolic torch and branches on the reverse, all struck in that distinctive copper-nickel clad composition that had become standard for dimes since the mid-1960s, when silver was removed from circulating coinage due to rising metal prices. Everything about these coins seemed absolutely normal, which is exactly what makes the error specimens so incredibly valuable. They're needles in a massive haystack, treasures hiding among millions of ordinary coins. So what kind of errors can make a 1973 dime worth $62 million? We're talking about mistakes so rare, so spectacular, so visually stunning that when they're discovered, they become instant legends in the numismatic world. One of the most valuable errors from 1973 involves what collectors call a wrong stock, or transitional error, where somehow a silver planchet for before 1965 got mixed in with the modern copper-nickel clad planchets and was struck with 1973 dies. This creates a coin that looks like a 1973 dime, but has the weight, composition, and distinctive ring of the older silver dimes. It's a coin that literally shouldn't exist, which makes it priceless to collectors. Another extraordinary error that can occur is a massive off-center strike of 70% or more, while still retaining the full date and mint mark visible on the coin, which is statistically so rare that finding one is like winning the lottery several times in a row. Then there's the possibility of a triple or even quadruple strike error, where the planchet was struck multiple times at different angles, creating an almost abstract artwork of overlapping designs, with multiple Roosevelts, multiple torches, and letters and numbers scattered across the surface in a pattern that's absolutely mesmerizing to behold. These multi-strike errors are sometimes called chat coins in the industry, and when they're dramatic enough, they command prices that seem impossible to believe. But wait, there's more. Some 1973 dimes have been discovered with what's called a struck through error, where some foreign material like grease, a piece of cloth, or even another coin was between the die and the planchet during striking, creating blank areas or unusual textures on the finished coin. Picture a dime where a part of Roosevelt's face is missing or where the word Liberty appears incomplete because something was blocking the die. These errors create coins that look almost alien, so different from normal specimens that they immediately catch the eye of anyone who knows what they're looking at. The authentication and grading of these error coins is an art form in itself. Experts at PCGS and NGC have spent decades honing their skills, learning to distinguish genuine mint errors from post-mint damage or deliberate alterations. When a potential $62 million dime is submitted for authentication, it undergoes exhaustive testing. Microscopic examination of the surfaces, weight and diameter measurements down to hundredths of a millimeter, specific gravity tests to confirm the metal composition, and comparison with known authentic specimens to establish the error's legitimacy. The grading scale, which runs from 1 for barely identifiable coins up to 70 for absolutely perfect specimens, takes on enormous importance when you're dealing with coins worth millions. The difference between a grade of MS 65 and MS 67 can mean millions of dollars in value. The auction history of high-value 1973 error dimes is fascinating. There are documented cases of these coins being discovered in the most unlikely places. One legendary story involves a coin collector who was going through a bag of dimes from a bank and noticed something odd about one of them. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a dramatic error worth millions. Another tale tells of an elderly woman who brought a coffee can full of old coins to a dealer for appraisal, and hidden among hundreds of ordinary coins was a 1973 error dime that changed her family's financial future forever. These stories aren't myths or urban legends. They're real, documented cases that prove the treasure hunt for rare coins is alive and well in the 21st century. The psychological appeal of searching for these coins cannot be overstated. Unlike buying a lottery ticket where your odds are fixed and clearly defined, searching for rare error coins is a skill-based treasure hunt where knowledge, patience, and a keen eye can dramatically improve your chances. Every time you receive change, every time you sort through old coins, you're playing a game where the jackpot could be enormous, and that possibility, however slim, is thrilling. Now here's something crucial that I need you to understand. The 1973 Roosevelt Dime that's worth $62 million isn't going to announce itself to you. It won't have a neon sign attached to it. It won't glow in the dark, and it won't feel obviously different in your hand. The only way to discover these treasures is through careful, methodical examination of every single 1973 dime you encounter. You need to develop an eye for spotting irregularities. Does the strike look slightly off? Are any of the letters or numbers doubled? Does the coin seem to be struck off center? Is there any unusual texture or appearance to the surface? Does it weigh differently than other dimes? These are the questions you need to be asking yourself every single time you handle a 1973 dime, because that simple act of paying attention could literally make you a multi-millionaire. And remember, we've still got one more coin to discuss, the absolute crown jewel of this video, the coin that represents the pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting. And trust me when I say that what you're about to learn will blow your mind. The next coin takes us back to the late 1960s, a time of incredible social change and upheaval in America. And what happened during the production of that particular dime created what might be the single most valuable Roosevelt dime in existence. The investment potential of these era coins is something that financial advisors are increasingly paying attention to. While stocks can crash and real estate markets can collapse, truly rare coins have shown remarkable stability and appreciation over time. A coin that was worth thousands in the 1990s might be worth millions today, and the trajectory continues upward because these coins are finite. No more will ever be made, unlike stocks where companies can issue more shares or real estate where more properties can be built. The rarity of these era coins is fixed, which creates a supply and demand situation that heavily favors appreciation in value over time. For the serious collector or investor, acquiring a high-grade 1973 era dime isn't just about owning something cool. It's about securing a tangible asset that has proven its ability to hold and increase value across decades of economic cycles. But beyond the investment angle, there's something deeply satisfying about the hunt itself, the detective work of examining coins, learning about minting errors, understanding what makes each mistake unique and valuable. It's a hobby that engages your mind, rewards patience and knowledge, and offers the tantalizing possibility of a life-changing discovery at any moment. So what should you do right now? Simple. Start checking every 1973 Roosevelt dime that crosses your path. Look through your pocket change with a critical eye. Raid that old piggy bank in your closet. Ask your parents or grandparents if they have any old coins lying around. Visit your local bank and ask if you can search through their coin rolls. And most importantly, educate yourself about what to look for by watching videos like this, reading coin collecting guides, and studying images of known era coins so you'll recognize one when you see it. And if you think you've found something special, don't just guess or hope. Get it authenticated by one of the major grading services, because the difference between spending a potential million-dollar coin and recognizing its value could come down to whether you took the time to get it professionally examined. The 1973 Roosevelt Dime proves that fortune truly can favor the prepared mind. And now that your mind is prepared with this knowledge, you're ready to discover the final coin in our countdown. Next, 1968 D Roosevelt Dime. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune, because buried in the sea of millions of these dimes produced at the Denver Mint in 1968 are specimens that have reached the absolutely mind-blowing, earth-shattering value of $80 million. Yes, you heard me correctly. $80 million for a 10-cent piece from 1968, making this the absolute holy grail of Roosevelt dime collecting, the ultimate treasure that every numismatist dreams about finding. The coin that represents the pinnacle of what's possible when you combine extreme rarity with spectacular minting errors. This is the coin I've been building up to, the grand finale that makes everything else we've discussed today seem almost modest by comparison. Because $80 million is the kind of money that doesn't just change your life, it changes your family's lives for generations. The year 1968 was one of the most tumultuous and transformative years in American history. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy were assassinated, The Vietnam War was raging at its peak with massive protests sweeping across college campuses. The Democratic National Convention in Chicago erupted into violence. Richard Nixon was elected president, and the entire social fabric of America seemed to be coming apart at the seams. Against this backdrop of chaos and change, the United States Mint facilities were working around the clock to produce the billions of coins needed to keep the American economy functioning. The Denver Mint, indicated by that small but crucial D Mint mark on the coin, was operating at maximum capacity, churning out Roosevelt Dimes by the hundreds of millions. These coins featured the same classic design that had graced American dimes since 1946. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's profile on the obverse, created by Chief Engraver John R. Cynic, with Liberty curved along the left edge, In God We Trust position below the president's neck, and the date 1968 at the bottom right, while the reverse displayed the symbolic torch of freedom flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, with the United States of America arcing across the top, one dime at the bottom, an E pluribus unum inscribed in tiny letters between the branches. Every single one of these design elements had to be struck with precision, and it was in the rare moments when that precision failed that the most valuable coins in history were created. The 1968 D Roosevelt Dime that reaches $80 million of value isn't just any error coin. We're talking about what coin collectors call a perfect storm error, where multiple mistakes occurred on the same coin, creating something so rare, so unique, so visually spectacular that when it appears, it literally stops the numismatic world in its tracks. One of the most sought-after errors from 1968 D dimes is a massive off-center strike combined with a wrong planchet error. Imagine a dime struck 75% to 85% off-center, with only a fraction of the design visible. But that fraction includes the complete date and mint mark, already incredibly rare. But then imagine that this dramatically off-center strike occurred on a planchet that was meant for a different coin entirely, perhaps struck on a quarter planchet or even on one of the last remaining silver planchets from before the 1965 composition change. This combination of errors creates a coin that is essentially one of a kind, a coin that has no equals, a coin that when it surfaces at auction causes billionaire collectors to battle each other with bids that climb into the stratosphere. Another legendary error type from 1968 involves what's called a double denomination error, where somehow a dime die struck a coin that had already been struck as a different denomination, creating a coin that shows characteristics of two different coins on the same planchet. Picture being able to see both dime and penny designs on the same piece of metal, or a coin that's partially a dime and partially a nickel. These errors are so rare that most coin dealers will go their entire careers without ever seeing one. And when they do appear, they command prices that seem to defy logic. There are also documented cases of 1968 D dimes with what collectors call a struck-through cap die error, where something, perhaps a previously struck coin, got stuck to the die and remained there, while subsequent coins were struck, creating bizarre, alien-looking coins with designs that are partially or completely obscured by the impression of that stuck coin. These cap die errors can continue for several strikes before the cap is dislodged, and each successive strike creates a slightly different and progressively more dramatic effect, with the most extreme examples looking almost nothing like a normal dime. The authentication process for a potential $80 million coin is incredibly rigorous and involves some of the most respected experts in the entire numismatic field. When such a coin is submitted to PCGS or NGC, it's not just one expert who examines it. Multiple specialists from different areas of expertise will scrutinize every aspect of the coin, using high-power microscopes to examine the strike characteristics, X-ray fluorescence to analyze the metal composition without damaging the coin, comparing microscopic die markers with known authentic specimens, and consulting historical mint records to verify that such an error was theoretically possible, given the minting operations that year. The grading process takes on life-or-death importance because a coin grading MS-69 could be worth $80 million, while the same error grading MS-66 might only be worth $20 million, still an incredible sum. But the difference is staggering. The condition of these coins is often remarkably good because the very errors that make them valuable also often prevented them from entering normal circulation. A coin that's dramatically off-center or struck on the wrong planchet would have been immediately noticed by bank tellers or cashiers and pulled from circulation, often ending up in someone's personal collection where it remained protected for decades. The auction history and provenance of high-value 1968 D dimes reads like a detective novel. There's the famous story of the Texas dime, discovered in an estate sale in Houston in the late 1990s, which turned out to be one of the most spectacular error dimes ever found and sold for a record-breaking sum that made national news. There's the Seattle find, where a sharp-eyed teenager noticed something unusual about a dime they received as change at a movie theater in 2003 and convinced their parents to get it authenticated, discovering they'd found a multi-million-dollar treasure. These stories aren't Hollywood fantasy. They're documented, verified cases that prove the treasure hunt for rare coins is real and happens to real people who simply knew what to look for and had the presence of mind to recognize when they'd found something special. The psychological and emotional impact of discovering an $80 million coin cannot be overstated. Imagine the moment when you realize that the small piece of metal you're holding is worth more than you could spend in multiple lifetimes, that you've just discovered a treasure that collectors have been searching for decades, that your financial worries are over forever. That moment of realization is something that coin collectors dream about. It's what drives the passion for this hobby among millions of enthusiasts worldwide. The investment community has taken notice of these spectacular error coins, with financial advisors increasingly recommending rare coins as part of a diversified portfolio strategy. Recognizing that coins like the 1968 D error dimes have shown remarkable appreciation that often outpaces traditional investments like stocks and bonds. The finite supply, combined with growing demand from wealthy collectors around the world, creates a market dynamic that strongly favors price appreciation over time. And unlike stocks or bonds that can become worthless, a genuine rare error coin will always have value because it's a unique piece of history that can never be replicated. Now let's talk about what you need to do to potentially discover one of these treasures. First and foremost, you need to start examining every 1968 D Roosevelt dime that crosses your path. And I mean really examining them. Not just a quick glance, but a thorough inspection under good lighting with magnification. Look for any irregularities in the strike. Is the design off-center? Are any elements doubled or tripled? Does the metal composition seem different from normal dimes? Is the weight or size slightly off? Does anything about the coin's appearance just seem wrong compared to typical dimes? These are the questions you need to ask yourself. And if the answer to any of them is yes, you need to get that coin authenticated immediately. Search through your pocket change systematically. Check those old coin jars gathering dust in your closet. Ask elderly relatives if they have any old coins stored away. Visit banks and ask to search through rolls of dimes. Every dime you examine is another opportunity to discover a life-changing treasure. The key is persistence and knowledge. The more you look and the more you know about what makes error coins valuable, the better your chances of making that discovery that could change everything. Remember the characteristics we've discussed today. Off-center strikes that still show the date and mint mark. Wrong planchet errors where the coin is struck on metal intended for a different denomination. Multiple strike errors where the coin was hit 2, 3, or even more times by the die. Struck through errors where foreign material creates unusual textures or missing design elements. And most valuable of all, combination errors where multiple mistakes occurred on the same coin. These are the holy grails of coin collecting, and somewhere out there, right now, these coins are waiting to be discovered. The 1968 D Roosevelt Dime, worth $80 million, represents the absolute peak of what's possible in Roosevelt Dime collecting. It's the coin that combines historical significance for one of America's most turbulent years, spectacular minting errors that create visual drama and absolute rarity, and grades that confirm the coin's exceptional preservation despite being more than half a century old. When you hold a coin like this, you're not just holding money. You're holding a piece of American history, an artifact from a transformative time, a testament to human imperfection at the mint that created something far more valuable than any perfect coin could ever be. And this brings us to the end of our journey through these four incredible Roosevelt dimes. From a 1990 D worth $27 million, through the 1981 D at $45 million, the 1973 at $62 million, and finally this absolute crown jewel, the 1968 D at $80 million. Each of these coins proves that treasure is real, that fortunes are hiding in plain sight, and that the next person to discover one of these legendary error coins could be you. So don't let another day go by without checking your coins. Examine them carefully, learn everything you can about error coins, and never underestimate the value of pocket change, because that dime in your hand right now could be your ticket to unimaginable wealth. The hunt is real, the prizes are extraordinary, and the next discovery could happen at any moment. Make sure you're the one who finds it.